It's time for Straight Talk Live with renowned radio pioneer Edna Howell-Parrish, the television show and podcast dedicated to presenting thought-provoking issues and opinions with the goal of challenging listeners to re-examine their assumptions and expand their opinions and give thought to new ideas and concepts to better their lives and the lives of others. This is your opportunity to participate in making the world better. So without further ado, let's get ready for Straight Talk Live with your host Edna Howell-Parrish.
Hi, everybody. Hi, I am Edna Howell-Parrish, and welcome to the show today. We'd like to welcome you once again. A lot of exciting things going on in the news and a lot of exciting things going on as far as the elections are concerned. Now, today's guest is our friend from Charlotte, North Carolina, Shamaye Haynes. Good morning and welcome to the show, Shamaye.
Good morning, Edna, and good morning, friends and friends of Edna. How are you?
Thank you. So glad to have you here. How excited are you about this season of election time?
Oh, I am extremely excited. I mean, all of the talk, all of the connections being made, all of the civic engagement, and the sheer excitement around Kamala Harris and what she's able to build in a very short period of time. It's an exciting time to be in America.
Shamaye is a political activist being called on left and right to get out there and help people. How active have you been?
Oh man, I have been extremely active. One of the things that I do is I teach at the university here. Well, I co-teach a class at the university here. And so our students have been registering people to vote. They've been we're planning to put together a rally. I've been making phone calls. In a week or so here, I'll be canvassing every week end plus 1 weekday to push out the vote. And also I'm working in my precinct as well to get the vote out.
Is Kamala Harris, is she Kamala Harris for the people?
I believe she's as close as for the people as anyone could be. We have a candidate out there who I won't mention his name, but he's actually trying to put together a dictatorship in our country or be a dictator. And that is the absolute worst thing we could ever, ever, ever hope for as a country and as a nation. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think she has a good agenda for the American people. Could it be perfected? Yes. But what I don't want people to do is not do anything trying to look for perfection in any candidate. Let's get out here. Let's put our best foot forward for the American people and move forward with Kamala Harris.
Comments that I've heard by people that are for the Republican candidate, I'll say Donald Trump, they're saying that he's done the job before, and so he's more familiar with what Kamala Harris would be, and he can do a good job again. True or false?
Well, I would say false. And the reason I say false is because we fired him once. He was fired from his job. You know, he talks about how he fired all these people. Well, the American people fired him. We gave him the opportunity, not we. Some of us gave him the opportunity. We allowed him to be president and to put his best foot forward. And clearly, he could not. And so we fired him once, and hopefully he won't be a rehire again to be destructive.
Well, so the debate took place. Was it a knockout for Trump, a knockout for Kamala Harris?
It was a definite knockout. Well, Kamala Harris did all the knocking out. I actually did not watch the debate live. I wanted to wait, and I really didn't get much into what people were saying about the debate. I watched it alone. I watched it carefully. I dissected every word of what people said because I wanted to really, if she truly did lose the debate, I didn't want the emotion to be there that I couldn't decide who actually he just went for every time she cast her rod out there. I mean, he just was he fell for everything she put out. And I don't mean that like basically they let him speak. And that was the key. Let it all hang out in terms of how uninformed he is, in terms of how old and senile he is. Let it all hang out. And I think that debate should tell people really about what they're going to get if they vote for him.
Well, Madam Vice President said, "You are weak and wrong. You are unfit."
Yes.
And she
And
didn't ask when she said it either. She looked straight at
I
him. He couldn't look
it,
at her.
that's right. And what I really thought was interesting was I could tell that she was a little nervous when she first came out.
Oh, yeah.
She Yet at the same time, she stood tall. You know, people don't realize how large of a man Donald Trump really is. He's very tall. And he's big man too. And she stood there and she definitely held her own. Part of me feels a little bit sad that we have to validate how smart she is and how intelligent she is. But hey, she is a prosecutor. She knew exactly what to do. And that's not because some magical aids helped her. It's because that is what her years of experience are. And I think that's one of the sad things is that we got this man over here that's really dumb and stupid. He's not even formally educated, really. And this woman who's definitely had a time growing up and has worked through that and has gone off to college and has really done everything she needs to do to stand on that stage. And we still have to validate how smart she was against this dummy over here, you know?
She strolled across that stage. She came over to his platform. She put her hand out, shook
Yep.
his hand. I know he wanted to fall to the floor.
I know he did. But guess what? You know, there is one thing that a lot of people have not talked about, and that is the resilience of Black women and who we are. Yes, we are grossly underpaid, we're underappreciated, but yet we do carry a tremendous amount in our community. And we are resilient. We go out here and we hustle, we work hard to get overeducated sometimes, to build our families and to bring support to our communities. And this is something that is really important for us to know. Absolutely. Can a Black woman handle that seat? Absolutely. If she doesn't know, she's going to find out. She's going to stand tall for us and she's going to stand up to the big bad folks out here. And internationally, okay, nothing's going to happen to us internationally because a woman is out there speaking, because she'll be head of the entire free world. Now let's make no mistakes about that. And she'll have a military that supports her. And she'll have the support of the American people. And that's what's important.
We're moving on with the show this morning. Our guest, Shamaye Haynes, a community activist, organizer, political consultant from Charlotte, North Carolina. And you're watching Issues and Opinions, Straight Talk Live with Edna Howell Parrish. Well, an assassination attempt again for the second time against the Republican presidential candidate, Donald Trump. He survived, of course, as you know, the second attempt within 2 months. Somebody wants that man dead. Now, it's not the Haitians that Trump has been complaining about all week. It's not anybody Black. The people that have been arrested have been white men. What's up with that? I thought he was their boy.
Well, first, let me say this. I do not condone any kind of violence in America. Matter of fact, I wore these orange earrings because they're a symbol for an organization that some friends of mine are very active in and that I regularly support, Moms Demand Action. The reason why it's significant for us to talk about this, Edna, and I'm so glad you brought it up, is because sometimes when you invoke violence and you talk about violence and you actually uphold violence, sometimes the gun gets turned on you. And then what? You know, we have Donald Trump by himself has engaged in political violence so much that now the tables are turning on him. And I'm not, like I said, I don't condone people carrying a gun somewhere and attempting to assassinate anyone. But at the same time, this should be a lesson to him and a message to legislators that we have got to make some changes in this country, and that their children and their people also are at risk for gun violence. Here's the other piece of it. The other piece of it is Donald Trump in his first election, he tapped into something when it comes to the anger of Americans, some Americans, the anger that people feel like they're missing something or somebody's taking something from them. And when you invoke all of those emotions without a solution to close that up with jobs, with good health care, with a strong economy, then people it's going to turn on you too. You know, you can't like fight in the mud and not get dirty. And that's exactly what's happened. The tables have completely turned. You know, I'm sorry that those people felt like they needed to be so desperate to go turn to a gun. But at the same time, I think the chickens have come home to roost.
Well, Vice President Kamala Harris, she has accepted CNN's invitation for a possible second debate. This would be on October 23rd. She's eager. She's ready to get out there. She wants to debate Donald Trump again. And CNN says, you got the platform. You got it. She's ready. She's accepted. But this morning I read that Donald Trump has declined the invitation. One of the commentators on the network that I was watching said Donald Trump is afraid.
It's one of the smartest things he's ever done, which is not get out there and look like a fool again. It should be a telltale sign that he does not want to be exposed again, that he can't handle someone speaking truth and someone actually focused on evidence-based answers. He doesn't want that. He does not want that smoke, period.
No
So
smoke there.
there's there's a level that's the most intelligent decision he's ever made, really. I'd love to see a part 2 though.
Thank you, Shamaye. Well, no endorsement came this week for either Vice President Kamala Harris or Donald Trump from the Teamsters President Sean O'Brien, who said that he was getting some feedback from the union's decisions to not endorse Harris. But the local chapters rushed in to endorse her anyway. The local chapters did, but the main Teamsters are the biggest union ever. But the other unions have all endorsed Harris. But Kamala didn't, she said she was disappointed, but it wasn't that big of a deal. She got the other endorsement. But Trump said he got the endorsement anyway. He will lie in a minute. Just as soon as that man had a news conference, Trump said, I got the endorsement anyway. Oh, no, he didn't. He lied.
Well, the Teamsters themselves have been historically a more conservative leaning union anyway. But I think that speaks to, there are a couple of things. One is they definitely did not endorse Trump. I think they had an issue. And the issue was that there were some people or some union members. And remember, the union is only as strong as its members are. Right. And if they had a significant number of union members who did not want to support Harris, then they were kind of in a little bit of a conundrum. So the fact that they chose not to endorse anyone is actually a pretty strong sign. It's a strong sign to say, like, hey, we know what the right thing is, but we just kind of have to hold off because we're in a conundrum. I think that it also speaks to how members of our society actually do vote against their own interest. Biden and Harris have had the strongest union platform and policy-making position than we've had in a very long time, probably about 50 years to be exact. And so for a union not to strongly support the people who are in support of them, it just speaks to a larger problem that we have in America that, even here in North Carolina, our state legislature is Republican, and they chose not to expand Medicaid And that doesn't just affect urban Black people, it affects rural whites and poor whites. And so, but overwhelmingly, they vote these people in. So it's a problem in America that, and that's just another symptom of that problem.
Speaking of North Carolina, your governor, Roy Cooper, vetoed legislation this past week that would allocate several $100 million to expand private school vouchers. Now, his veto was anticipated. A lot of people thought he's a Democratic governor and a longtime critic of spending taxpayer money to help families send their K through 12 children to private and religious schools. The bill is part of the funds for this fall for children from families at all income levels who qualify. He already vetoed two previous versions of the immigration bill in 2019 and 2022. You would think that the governor would want to have more money for children going to private parochial schools. But then again, does that surprise you, or do you think school vouchers are a good thing? School choice,
So,
is it a good thing?
so Edna, we got limited time on this show, but I'm going to
I
attempt to
know.
really break down the complexity of what we're talking about here. North Carolina has had funding for vouchers for a very long time. And when that funding was initiated, it was initiated to support poor, marginalized students. What
Initially.
happened initially, what's
Mhm.
happened in more recent years, actually within the last couple of years, is our conservative state legislature decided to open it up to anyone who had a desire to send their children to private and parochial schools. Now, make no mistakes about it. I live in a school district where all my neighborhood schools are Title I schools, and they are struggling academically. All kinds of things are happening. So I am not against some a parent who says, "Hey, we live in this situation where these schools are terrible and I want another option for my child." But that's not really what the state legislature is doing here. What they're doing is they're allowing millionaires and people who can afford to send their children otherwise to these schools and already have access to them. They're giving them a tax break via school vouchers. The thing of it is, I have not seen any data that supports that these schools have increased their
And
numbers.
that's what I
These private,
understand. It
eh,
says most
yeah,
of the state's recipients of private school vouchers.
yes. So, and
Some
that's the
inter
whole.
Yes, continue.
So the other piece of it, the other piece of this is that for the most part, the more affluent private schools that were designed initially anyway to not segregate back in the day, without naming names, go back, and if they were established in the late 60s and early 70s and have a very limited history on their website, it's typically because they were actually established so that white affluent children mostly didn't have to segregate. And those schools, the tuition amounts in those schools the voucher doesn't even cover a quarter of what a parent would have to pay anyway to be in those schools. So overwhelmingly, even with the voucher system, you still were pretty limited in terms of what schools your children could go to. And so this is really, really terrible policy. It's terrible policy because you actually, rather than take the surplus that we had and put it back into the public school system, we took the surplus and put it in hands of people who quite honestly can afford to send their children to these schools. It's gross inequity. It's a terrible policy. And I am not a person who thinks that school choice is a bad thing, but there is bad policy that has followed school choice in a way that is very destructive to our public school system. And I don't support that.
Well, thank you. And I'm glad you took the time to explain that to us, because sometimes when parents and people that don't understand hear the fact that money will be coming to the state for schools and education, oh, it's a great thing. We like that. But then you broke it down, so I appreciate that. Now in Georgia this week, now this is a conundrum that I really think is going to mess up this election. We already knew that Georgia was in the make for trying to create controversy in the election. Now, the Georgia state has ordered a hand count of ballots cast in the November presidential election. This would create more delays in the system. Now, can you imagine on election night when all the precincts are trying to get the votes in? They're getting the votes into. Have you ever been down to the Board of Elections on election night to see how those votes come in, those big bags, and how they have to secure them and then get the votes over to start counting and put them into the machines to count? So instead of them using the machines to help them count, they have to be hand counted, like 1, 2, that's what they voted to do. How much sense does that make? The elections board voted to hand count, despite the people from the state and even the Board of Elections president and the Secretary of State. They objected to this, but they still got it passed anyway.
It's just another
6,500 voting precincts. 6,500 voting precincts ballots have to be counted by hand. Can you imagine?
I would not want to be working for them. And that's all intentional, to have people, if you don't have the right number of people volunteering and working on election night, it just makes it's just another form, not necessarily of voter suppression, but support for disenfranchisement. Trying to say that our vote, trying to say, see, your vote doesn't count, and we're trying to assure you that your vote counts, and all of this other mess. Now, one thing that I can sort of feel optimistic about is that now that we have a really strong candidate running against the person, there is a lot less voter apathy out there. People are trying to really come out of the negativity that we began in when this election first started. And who knows what the shenanigans are going to be from now on. Now, we had Mr. Kennedy, who tried to put us through some stuff here in North Carolina. He wanted his name off the ballot this close to the election. I mean, early voting starts October 17th in Mecklenburg County. And less than 30 days before that happens, you want to come. I mean, it's just all kinds of shenanigans. And as American people, what we got to come to is, I'm going to vote no matter what. I'm going to vote till I die. If I have to sit in the sweltering heat or the cold or whatever it is, you're not going to prevent me from voting. And you're not going to prevent our ballots getting counted. What that means is people need to go in droves and help count those darn ballots. Show them that we are determined and we're very serious about this election and all elections, and that we're serious about our vote and making sure that it not only counts, but that people don't disenfranchise us.
Yeah, I hate to see what's going to happen there in Georgia around the election time. I tell you, with Georgia, I think a couple of weeks ago when I had one of the a guy from Georgia on the show, we talked about the whole issue of them wanting to even disenfranchise voters by having they have a machine you can go on and unregister people to vote. They have that in Georgia. That's actually the truth. And so we discussed that. And so everything is going to be in on the fix for Donald Trump. They doing everything they can to try to keep him in that office. Even here in Ohio. Now, I'm really glad the governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine, finally delivered a strong condemnation of Donald Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance, for their continued false claims about Haitian immigrants in Springfield. Do you know that whole city was disrupted this whole last couple of weeks with bomb threats, schools closing, colleges closing, businesses having to close because of these threats against the Haitian immigrants in the city. Now, I'm so glad the governor spoke up about that. I know you have some strong feelings about that, but finally the governor did speak up. So I want people to hear what he had to say. Now, the whole issue was, what are the immigrants doing in Springfield, Ohio, 15 miles from where I live in Dayton, Ohio? But so why are there 15,000 immigrants in Springfield? They were invited to come to Springfield by the city commission, the councilors, the business organizations, because they wanted people to work. Were they taking a black job? No. Were they taking a white job? No. They had industry starting up in Springfield. They no longer had International Harvester, the maker of these big tractors in Springfield. So that was a big economy boom for Springfield. So they needed people to work. And they invited the immigrants, and not only those immigrants, but from other countries. They were in the country legally, not illegally, but legally. So the governor spoke up, and I'm so glad he did.
Well, throughout all of the turmoil in Springfield, Ohio, Governor Mike DeWine has called for calm. He sent additional law enforcement resources and condemned hate. He joins me now. Governor DeWine, welcome back to the News Hour. Thanks for being with us.
Good to be with you. Thank you very much.
So I want to put to you something that Senator Vance said earlier at a rally today. He quoted you saying that you had said every single one of the bomb threats that Springfield, Ohio has seen was a hoax, and all of the bomb threats came from foreign countries. Just for clarification, is that accurate?
Some of the bomb threats came from foreign countries. Others came from in the United States. And all of them have been hoaxes. That's correct. None of them have panned out. We've obviously checked each one out, but they've been very disruptive. Schools have had to close. We put in our highway patrol to the schools so they can be open today. And I was glad to see a lot of students were back when Fran and I visited there today.
So when you say that they're hoaxes, that means there haven't actually been bombings. They have been threats. But as you just heard from my colleague's conversation with the Springfield city manager, he said you have to respond to everyone as if it could be real. So if the intention is to sow fear, is it working?
Well, Fran and I were in schools today. We talked to kindergartners, first graders, second graders, and to teachers. And what the teachers said is the kids are doing well today. But yesterday they had a tough day. That's how the teachers described it. So if the kids are having a tough day, you can imagine that parents have had a tough day. It's been very disruptive. We've seen Wittenberg close, our university. We've seen our Clark State Community College have to close. So yeah, this has been very, very disruptive and very concerning. And our message has been we're going to supply the help. Our schools need to stay open. And we want parents to be able to feel good about sending their children to school. So we've put 36 members of the Ohio State Highway Patrol, our special unit, literally in the schools. They go in the morning in the schools. They make sure there's no bombs, there's nothing. We just want to be able to assure the parents that it is safe. And if I was a parent, I would be concerned as well with all these different threats and all this rancor and all this hate.
To that point, Governor.
Now, the question is, why did all this start over the immigrants? A comment that Donald Trump made at the debate when he was with Kamala Harris, he said the Haitians were eating the pets in Springfield, cats and dogs. The Haitians were eating cats and dogs. And this spread, and it kept going, and he kept pushing it. Where did it come from? It came from J.D. Vance, who admitted that he knew he was lying. He said he knew he was lying, but he still wanted to do it anyway. Thoughts on that?
The most disturbing thing about this is it reminds me of what I have read. Thank God I've never had to experience it. It reminds me of the good old-fashioned lynch mob. It reminds me of how people would bring forth some kind of lie about some black person and have, the people in a big fray of fear go out and do something and do things to innocent people. And that should tell us something about who these people are. They want to take us back to a time that was very dark in America. And in some ways, it continues to be dark because of them. And this also points to something. You didn't just pick any community to bother or to lie on. You picked Black people. Still, Haitians have had a horrible time over the years. They were the first group of Black people in the world to overturn colonization. They were the
Absolutely.
first Black people to actually win their country back over, and they have paid for it ever since. Above all, the Haitian people distinctly are vulnerable in our country. They're more vulnerable to ICE by, being picked up and harassed. And I just, there is a lot of anger about what they've done here, because to me, it's an old-fashioned lynch mob mentality. And then people are following right up with it with threats and all of this other stuff to people who, what have they done to you? You didn't target European immigrants because they're here too, just like everybody else. You didn't even target brown people this time. You targeted Black people. And the thing of it is, like, if we don't see that this is troubling, we got some problems in America. People should not vote for him just on the strength that he's invoking more violence. And we just don't need that. We've got to get, like Kamala Harris says, we've got to push past this mess here. Let's create something that is for the people and by the people. And by the way, if he's talking about Black jobs, those are actually Black people. Take him, I mean,
yeah, I understand. I will say this, that the Haitian immigrants are in Springfield. They're in Ohio. They're in America because they're legally here under what's called the Temporary Protected Status, TPS. And the immigrants get a chance to come to America, the foreign nationals, as we call them. They're here from 15 other countries that allows them to live and work in the U.S. for up to 18 months. And then this can run out, but it can be extended, but it's not a pathway to become an American citizen. They're here temporarily. They were invited to come here to work. Now, other countries that have these same people in the United States are Afghanistan, Cameroon, El Salvador, Ethiopia, Haiti, Honduras, Myanmar, Nepal, Nicaragua, Somalia, South Sudan, Venezuela, Ukraine, Syria, Yemen. They're here. There's 610,634 nationals protected in the U.S. by TPS. Now, not only are they in Springfield and they're doing the work, they said they are actually doing a good job, and people get along with people. One thing that did happen was a Haitian man, was driving without driver's license. He hit a school bus and a kid was killed, a white kid. Now, even the kid's parents said they understand they didn't do it on purpose. He knew that the father said he knew it was an accident. It didn't mean that they weren't sad, but they didn't call for all of this commotion. But it was J.D. Vance, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, from Ohio, right here. He lives up in Cincinnati, but he's Donald Trump's running mate, creating all this havoc, So people are asking, when is their life going to get back to normal? They want to have their life back to normal. And making some comments on this was John Legend, the singer John Legend. He's from Springfield, Ohio.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Legend, and I was born as John R. Stevens from a place called Springfield, Ohio. Oh, Springfield, Ohio. You may have heard of Springfield, Ohio this week. In fact, if you watch the debate, we were discussed by our presidential candidates, including a very special, interesting man named Donald J. Trump. Now, Springfield has had a large influx of Haitian immigrants who have come to our city. Now, our city had been shrinking for decades. We didn't have enough jobs. We didn't have enough opportunity. So people left and went somewhere else. So when I was there, we had upwards of 75,000 people. And in the last 5 years, we were down to like 60,000 people. But of late, during the Biden administration, there have been more jobs that opened up, more manufacturing jobs, more plants, factories that needed employees and were ready to hire people. So we had a lot of job opportunities, and we didn't have enough people in our town of 60,000 people to fill those jobs. And during the same time, there had been upheaval and turmoil in Haiti, and the federal government granted visas and immigration status to a certain number of Haitian immigrants so they could come to our country legally. And our demand in Springfield for additional labor met up with the supply of additional Haitian immigrants. And here we are. We had,
as he said, here we are. Those people didn't force their way into Springfield. They didn't march
Right.
down, I-70 to get to Springfield. They weren't marching.
Right.
They didn't cross the border in Mexico to come up to Springfield. J.D. Vance said he was trying to draw attention to the immigration issues in Springfield. He said, if I have to create stories so that American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do, he said. That's what he did. And so he did it. And he created a big mess. So it won't be long before I pray that no one gets hurt in this whole issue. Here in Dayton, where I live, there are Haitian immigrants here working. They were invited to come here to work. One company that makes these lazy boy recliners, probably everybody's got one. A lot of people have them in their house, especially a lot of elderly people. They have lazy boys in their house. Well, they're making lazy boys here in Dayton with Haitian immigrants are part of the workforce. They're getting along fine. This company, FC Industries, that makes the recliners, they said their business has grown to become an $85 million industry, making lazy boy recliners. And the Haitian workers are part of the workforce there. People are getting along and getting along fine here. So I don't know what they're trying to do. I know what they're trying to do, but I hope no one gets hurt. I tell you, it's amazing to see how somebody as ignorant as they are and wanting to run the country, and people that are supporting them. People can't even see me. I don't know why they can't see what the problem is, but they're supporting Donald Trump and J.D. Vance.
It's the bottom line racist psychology that we exist under in America. It's the psychology that as long as I have other people who I can be better than, then I'm a better, larger than life person. And because of that mentality, so many white people in this country are under oppression themselves. They just but mentally they don't see that they're oppressed because there's always someone else who's identified as being less than. Like I said, it's really difficult for me to hear what they're saying about the Haitian people, because at the end of the day, those are some oppressed people. They just, they are people who want to come here to work just like any other person. They just don't deserve to have the stigma of eating somebody's pets and all this kind of craziness. As a matter of fact, I wonder how J.D. Vance's wife really feels about all this. Like, what does she think? How does that work? You have somebody who, if they weren't given the opportunity as an immigrant, would not be here in this country, or at least her parents would not have been able to come here in this country. And it just shows you that he has no integrity, no morals about what he would say or do. Good Lord.
It's amazing because J.D. Vance himself is a person who came from no means, without any means, raised in Springfield, Ohio, which is, just down the road from Dayton. From Middletown, Ohio. I misspoke. Middletown, Ohio. Raised by his grandparents. His mother was a nurse. She was on drugs. She was drug addicted for many, many years. But the family originally came from Appalachia in Kentucky. Jackson, Kentucky is where they're from. I know the area because that's where my father's people are from. I know the area very well. They have nothing but hollers, and I say hollers, the land between the mountains and where the rivers flowed. And I know they had nothing. But he wrote his book, Hillbilly Elegy, and I bought the book because I wanted to understand. And once I read the book, I was drawn to the book because I said, now I can understand a lot of what my father was talking about, the way they were raised. They ate grass. They didn't have any food. They didn't have anything to grow up on. So J.D. Vance knew that. And you would think that he could empathize with people that didn't have and where he came from. But he graduated from Middletown High School. He joined the military. He went to college. And then he met these people from out in California that were part of the, I forget the name of the company they worked for, but he met people that he kind of got pulled up a little bit. Then he got into politics, but then how soon did he forget? But he married an immigrant. He married a woman who was from India, just like Kamala Harris's people were from India. And what does she think? I think she's probably too afraid to even talk. I think she's afraid.
Whew. Goodness alive. I mean, it's just really, it's so backward and so immoral what some of the things that I've seen in him personally. And I think, but it's a telltale sign about what you're going to get if you put these people in the highest office of our country. I am praying every day that they do not get in, because it's going to be a disaster for us. Like, really, on every level you can think
Indeed.
of.
I do. We have to, and I know that we have to get out there, knock on doors, and get the vote out, and get people, encourage them to attend the forums, and not only vote for the national election, but local candidates as well running. We'll close the Springfield story out with a Haitian herself, actress Garcelle Bouvet. She's so disappointed.
Staying silent in the face of racism and hate is something that I refuse to do. This past week, the lies that have been spewed about the Haitian community, about my community, have been disgusting, deeply hurtful, and dangerous. Now, this is not about politics. It's about humanity. We must condemn this kind of hatred, this kind of racism for anyone. I have always been a proud Haitian immigrant. Coming to America, working hard, that's what we do. Coming from gratitude. And I will not sit by and let people talk about my community in any way they want for their own gain. The power we have is the power to vote, to register and vote, and stop this madness, this chaos.
Stop the madness, as she says, stop the chaos.
Yes.
It's just, I just hope that people can listen. And no one says it's a perfect situation, but the people in Springfield are getting along. I mean, they have some things, they're getting along, they're surviving. And no one asked J.D. Vance to come in. Now, Donald Trump said he's going to Springfield. And they asked him not to come, stay away. The mayor in Springfield says, stay away. And even Ohio's governor says, stay away. Don't come. We don't need you here. We don't need you here.
That's great advice.
Yes, that's right. He finally did. Yes. So we will let the Haitians rest in Springfield, and hopefully, as people go to church today and they pray and talk about these issues, let's hope that it comes to a conclusion soon. Let's go back up to your state of North Carolina. That's a busy state. Busy state.
Very busy.
When Kamala Harris was there a couple of weeks ago, and people were saying that the polls were showing and she was doing really good there in North Carolina. They were saying that that's one of the swing states that she possibly could win. And it's looking pretty good still for her. But you all have some people in North Carolina. I'm going to call this gentleman, I use that term loosely, he's a fool. Mark Robinson is a fool.
Absolutely.
People probably don't know who he is. A lot of people may not know. But this man,
I think
Mark
a lot
Robinson,
of people know who he is now.
Well, they do. Yeah, he's an African-American man. He is the lieutenant governor now. He's a Democrat, but he's running for governor of the state. And oh my goodness. What can I say about Mark Robinson? Comments, he denies everything, but they're saying that this Mark Robinson is a character. Donald Trump endorsed him. Donald Trump says that he is Martin Luther King Jr. on steroids. He loves this man. But Mark Robinson calls himself a Black Nazi. Things that he has said that on websites about his sexuality, about the things that he has seen and done and would do. I mean, this is amazing. He said he would take Hitler over any of the candidates running in the U.S. This is what Mark Robinson said, allegedly graphically describing his own sexual arousal as an adult from the memory of secretly peeping on women in public gym showers as a 14-year-old. Now, that's many years ago, but he publicly states this stuff. Do you know Mark Robinson? Have you met him? Would you vote for him?
I have
Will you be
never
voting for
had,
him?
absolutely not. I've never had the displeasure of meeting Mark Robinson personally, but I've known about who he is for a very long time. There were red flags raised when he ran for lieutenant governor, and there was a large push not to ever let him be seated as the lieutenant governor back then. The truth of it is that the Democrats really did not put forth enough effort back then to really solidify and to stand behind a candidate who could defeat Mark Robinson. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is that many of our Black folks out here are giving themselves over to a fascist party, and a party that doesn't represent our interests, not one single iota, and a party where we don't even have a direct line towards any sort of freedom and democracy. So what that means is you're going to have Mark Robinson's popping up both locally, on the state, and probably even the federal level. And it's a self-serving mission. You know, if the Democrats don't give you what you want, then you go over here and you become an overnight, or maybe sometimes not overnight, fascist. And that's just not the way that we need to move in terms of bringing forth Black liberation. If the Republicans were talking about reparations, if the Republicans were speaking to a Black agenda somehow, then I could maybe sort of see you leaning that way, but they're speaking of the exact opposite. It is very true that the Democratic Party has a long way to go for us, a long way to go for anybody in this country. Yet at the same time, we should not be so self-serving that we would go out here and talk about our own people, work to dismantle the few rights and freedoms that we still have, talk down on the civil rights movement and the things that our ancestors died for, fought for. Heck, for that matter, Mark Robinson, if somebody had not sacrificed, you would not be lieutenant governor. Those people you holding hands with and singing Kumbaya with, they would have probably rolled you up on a pole or hung you from a tree for even trying. But yet here we are. We get a little bit of freedom out here that somebody else sacrificed for. And we go out here and we praise the very people who want to destroy our communities and continue to invoke political violence on us and even other Black foreigners and things like that. We can't, there is absolutely no reason for someone going out here and doing and taking the steps that he's taken without, number one, being a lunatic. That's number one. But number two, also being a self-serving lunatic, to where you're willing to sacrifice the rights of your whole community and your whole people and the ancestors that fought for you so that you could get out here and do this mess. You know, our saving grace in North Carolina are groups like Indivisible, who are fighting they're not part of the Democratic Party or any sort of party, but they're fighting for democracy. We've got the League of Women Voters who are supporting in a nonpartisan way the Vote 411. If you don't want to support Democrats or Republicans, or you're not sure, now please, I don't care who you are, don't vote for Mark Robinson. But contact the vote411.org, and you can look up and see, because what they do is they have the candidates write out their positions. They don't edit. If it's a spelling error, anything, they don't edit. You get to hear directly from them the questions. You can do that digitally. There is the Black Political Caucus of Charlotte-Mecklenburg County, and we're a nonpartisan organization also, and we look at the needs of the Black community. And so there are so many places and positions that we can become involved, and we can denounce people like Mark Robinson with our vote and with our feet and with our volunteerism and everything we have. That is the only way to denounce people like this legally. Is vote them out.
Right. When you mentioned that the Democrat Party did not really vet him, the first election that he was in for lieutenant governor, and then coming into running for governor of the state, still a lot of these things didn't get bought out, but then they started to come out. But Donald Trump still endorsed him. Now, Trump was in North Carolina last night, but he didn't mention Robinson, although he's a heavy endorser of Robinson. He didn't mention him. He knows he's probably in trouble. But Robinson, here's what he said. All the things he said, he said they're just lying on him.
Tonight, Republican candidate Mark Robinson vowing to stay in the race for governor in North Carolina, vehemently denying an explosive new report purporting to show dozens of his disturbing comments online.
They want to focus on salacious tabloid lies. We're not going to let them do that. We are staying in this race. We are in it to win it.
The current lieutenant governor facing a swirl of speculation about the fate of his campaign after CNN today published what it called a series of inflammatory comments on a pornography website's message board more than a decade ago, before Robinson began his political career. NBC News has not verified the authenticity of the posts. CNN says include Robinson referring to himself as a black Nazi and expressing support for reinstating slavery. Writing, "Slavery is not bad. Some people need to be slaves. I wish they would bring it back. I would certainly buy a few." CNN also reporting Robinson, who publicly supports a 6-week ban on abortion with exceptions, wrote that he did not care if a celebrity got an abortion, writing, quote, "I don't care, I just want to see the sex tape." CNN says the comments were all made under the same username, and that Robinson used it elsewhere on the internet, including product reviews on Amazon. But tonight, Robinson blasting it as tabloid trash.
Let me reassure you, the things that you will see in that story, those are not the words of Mark Robinson. You know my words, you know my character, and you know that I have been completely transparent in this race and before.
No stranger to polarizing comments, Robinson has come under scrutiny in the past for calling the Holocaust hogwash, which he later said was a poorly worded remark that wasn't anti-Semitic.
Come November, I plan on being the first black governor of North Carolina.
He's a social conservative who's been endorsed by former President Trump.
This is Martin Luther King on steroids, okay?
North Carolina, a battleground state in the presidential race, but a tough one for Democrats, who haven't won it since 2008.
And Laura, the Trump campaign weighing in here tonight?
Yes, Lester, the Trump campaign saying the former president is focused on winning North Carolina. Meanwhile, if Robinson were to get out of this race, he only has until 11:59 tonight if Republicans have any hopes of replacing him as their nominee.
All right, Laura Jarrett, thanks very much.
All right. Well, they didn't announce that they were going to replace him. So, but
Strong
black
calls.
religious, black
Strong
religious
calls.
leaders,
Mhm.
they who loved Dr. Martin Luther King were insulted by Robinson's alleged despairing of King's impact on the world. And some pastors said they would not dignify Robinson's dishonorable comments by reacting to them. Others who spoke with NBC News, including Bishop Sir Walter Mack of Union Baptist Church in Winston-Salem, said Robinson needs an education on Martin Luther King's message.
There are strong calls from everybody for him to just drop out of the race. He's a disgrace. And he's been a disgrace for a very long time. People, because of all of the news media that we're getting now, people are sort of surprised. But in reality, those of us who have been involved for a very long time, he's been troubling for a long time. This is not a new Mark Robinson. This is just a new exposed Mark Robinson. And, he's troubling. He just is.
Good point. Could be a cousin to Supreme Court Justice, your boy.
He might be worse. He may be, Mark Robinson may be worse.
He may be worse.
Yeah, because he's not even educated. So.
Right. Yeah, at least, yes. Mm-hmm. In the time that we have left, I'll give you a chance to talk about some of the things that people need to do to get out the vote. You talked about voter 411 and to register, even though you live in a different state than you do, but there's some things that we can all do to help get our candidates out there and support them.
The number one thing you can do is to get out and vote. We're doing a lot of voter registrations, and that is important, but also those of us who are registered, get out to vote. Not only do you need to vote, but you need to vote early. Don't wait until election day. We talked about them erasing people off the registration rolls in Georgia. One of the ways that you get around that is the early vote, because you can register to vote and you can vote on the same day. That way, if there are any issues or concerns, they can be ironed out at that time before, your last day to vote is November 5th, Tuesday. That should be considered your last day to vote, not your first day to vote. The other piece of it is help people to understand the importance of this election. Knock on doors. Numbers don't matter. If you as one person knock on 10 doors, you can impact thousands of people, because you knocked on a door, you informed somebody, that person informs somebody, that person informs a neighbor. Do phone banking. If you're not comfortable over phones, do postcarding. My son just recently received a postcard from a guy named Eric, encouraging him to continue to vote. So there are things that we can all do that make an impact. Don't worry if you don't have a lot of time, just do what you can do. Go get a few postcards. Go call the local party. Get some information to see how you can make an impact. Here's the number one thing, though. You yourself go out to vote. Do not sit at home. Don't wait till the last day to vote. Take it seriously. And understand something, too. Understand this. There are people who are trying to stop you from voting. So guess what that means? It's important. Go vote. Knock doors, phone bank, write postcards. Most important thing, go out and vote yourself.
Excellent. The last word for today, go out and vote yourself. Well, is Kamala Harris for the people? Is Kamala Harris for the people? You say yes?
I say yes. Kamala Harris for the people.
Okay, the prosecutor versus the felon. She showed him up right.
Showed his mopped the floor with his behind.
We are weak and you are wrong and you are unfit. I thank you for joining us today on Straight Talk Live with Edna Howell Parrish and my friend from North Carolina, Shamaye Haynes, political activist, community activist, political consultant for the people. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Edna. Thank you, Edna and friends.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Straight Talk Live with renowned radio pioneer Edna Howell Parrish, the program dedicated to presenting thought-provoking issues and opinions with the goal of challenging listeners to re-examine their assumptions and expand their opinions and give thought to new ideas and concepts to better their lives and the lives of others. Join us next week for another opportunity to participate in making the world better. So until next week, live your best life from your friends at Straight Talk Live and host Edna Howell Parrish.